Politan, thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. You know, every once in a while, it's a good idea just to take a step back and take a look at what we do day in and day out inside courtrooms across America and what the purpose of all of this is. You know, why do we have trials? We don't have trials for political purposes. We don't have trials to send a message. We don't have trials because of some agenda someone has. We have trials to get to the truth. The truth. That's what it's all about. The jury's got to see and hear the evidence and figure out and tell us what the truth is. And yeah, we have our own opinions. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we don't. But ultimately, the truth is determined by the jury. And that's really what it's all about. Because you have two sides going at it. They don't agree about what happened. And someone's got to win, someone's got to lose. And one side's truth wins out in all of this. Now, in the trial we've been watching out of Nashville, the barroom brawl that spilled down to the street, Michael Mosley, accused of murdering two people. Mosley was charged with the murder of two people, right? So what's his defense? His defense was self-defense. He wasn't saying somebody else stabbed these three men, killing two. No. I did it, but I did it because it was self-defense. That was his version of the truth, which was much different than what prosecutors were saying to this jury about what really happened that night. So, getting back now to the role of our courtrooms to get to the truth, because it's not just Mosley and what his truth is. There are victims in this case, and this is a murder case, so you have two young men who aren't alive. They couldn't get inside that courtroom. They couldn't get up on the stand and tell this jury what happened. They couldn't do it. They were both killed by Mosley. But this trial is about them. It's not just about him and his version. It's about the victims, Clay Beathard, Paul Trapeni, and what happened to them outside of that bar that night. And there was a third victim. He survived. He was able to come into that courtroom and testify. So he was able to get his version, his truth in front of the 12 men and women. And today was the day. It didn't take long. It didn't take long for this jury. They're out like less than an hour after hearing the evidence, hearing the testimony, seeing the videos of what happened that night. They spoke clearly and they spoke loudly. Take a listen.
Has the jury reached a verdict?
Yes, ma'am.
If you will please stand, and if you will read the verdict, please.
The State of Tennessee versus Michael David Mosley. Verdict form. We, the jury, find the defendant, Michael David Mosley, count 1, first-degree murder upon the alleged victim, Clayton King Beathard, guilty of first-degree murder. Count 2, first-degree murder upon the alleged victim, Paul Douglas Trapeni III, guilty of first-degree murder. Count 3, attempted first-degree murder upon the alleged victim, Alva AJ Bethurum, guilty of attempted first-degree murder. And count 4, assault upon the alleged victim, Sal Folks, guilty of assault.
You know, you can talk about his reaction or a lack of reaction, but this is someone who's been in courtrooms before, already serving time, by the way. It was another attack that was caught on video. The person he was attacking was accused of murdering his brother, so I don't know, maybe there's a story behind that as well. But he's used to it. He knows the drill, so to speak. but it seemed like it was a lot more difficult on the foreperson. And we have to remember, as you know, we're taking a look at the big picture tonight. Let's not forget about those jurors, ordinary folks who get a notice in the mail, have no idea what they're going to have to decide. And in this case, they had to decide that this man was a murderer, and he's going to spend the rest of his life behind bars. Let's get more insight into what happened down there today. Court TV legal correspondent Julie Janae joining us live tonight from Nashville, Tennessee. Julie, great to see you. Let's start with reaction first. Reaction to this verdict. Watching here, we saw the defendant. We heard the foreperson. What can you tell us?
Hey, Vinny, that's right. That foreperson, she had really the most emotion inside of that courtroom. It was unlikely to me because during this trial, she took those copious notes. She looked very astute sitting there in the gallery, really didn't show much reaction to some of the really grisly details that was shared by the prosecution compared to some of her other jurors there on the panel. But once she read this verdict, she's a mother of 5 who works in the housing authority. Her voice was breaking. She was holding back tears as she read the names of the victims. You could see that this case affected her, and it spoke volumes that they were inside of that jury room really only around an hour after their lunch before they came back with those 4 counts of guilty. We also saw a lot of emotion from Mosley's sister, who was in the gallery, on the side of the gallery that we were able to point our cameras at. She was sobbing throughout this. She told us before this verdict came in that all of this has been compounded by that outstanding homicide case for the death of their brother back in 2016. So this just added to that tragedy for her family. And then on the other side of the gallery, where we were asked not to point our cameras, but then once they were able to leave the courtroom, we could see them hugging the family of Paul Trapeni, Clay Beathard, AJ Bethurum in the courtroom while that verdict is being read, and embraced by all of those people who were there every day of this trial. And it felt like a reunion inside of that courtroom every day in the gallery with the way they supported each other. And today they were silent in their reaction to justice prevailing for their loved one.
Absolutely. You know, in moments like this, I always think about the alternative. If the jury came back not guilty, how devastating that would be for these families. It's already devastating, but that would be, you know, to use a couple cliches, insult to injury, salt in the wound, however you want to say it. But they did get a sense of justice tonight. How about the prosecutor in this case? Did the prosecutor speak afterwards?
Prosecutor Jan Norman, we know her from another Court TV trial, the Waffle House murder trial, where she was able to get a successful conviction. Today, again, a successful conviction against the defendant. She pours so much emotion into her closing arguments, her opening statement, connecting with the jury in that way. And we did hear from her about why this was not a self-defense case and what they expect for this defendant going forward.
This is 100% Michael Mosley.
Yeah.
Michael Mosley did this. This all happened because of him. There's not one thing that a single one of those victims did to bring any of this to them. Everything that they did was what you would do as a human being. You see your friend in trouble, you try to help them. But he's the one that did this, and he brought this anger and violence to them. I think it's been really hard, especially when we have a case where we have a murder that's on video, because while we have that, it's not something that we want to have to put a family through to show them that video. And so having to kind of explain what the evidence is without actually showing it to them has been somewhat difficult, because it's hard to explain until you actually see it. And I feel like they've had such strength this week, and hearing all this evidence and testimony, especially with so much of it being video evidence of their son, their brother, their family members having to watch those last moments of their life.
Assistant District Attorney Norman says that they will be seeking the maximum penalty in this case, which would be life in prison. But she says there are some consecutive issues that they'll have to parse through for that sentencing that's scheduled on May 26th. So we could be looking at multiple life sentences for this defendant on top of the 12-year sentence that he's already serving.
Now, in my open, I talked about the two murder victims who could not get up on the witness stand and testify, but the third victim who survived did today. What can you tell us about his testimony and his impact inside that courtroom? AJ
Bethurum was a strong way for this prosecution to end their long list of witnesses that they put in front of this jury. He's the one who suffered a stab to the eye with a knife. You see, he's wearing glasses there. We didn't see that he was wearing glasses in pictures that we had of him beforehand. He has almost no vision in that eye that suffered this. He told these jurors that that blade injured his skull. That's how deep it went into his eye. And he gave these jurors an idea of the order in which this happened, that the two men who were killed, that was after the stabbing happened to him. So this was, according to the prosecution, those friends defending him. Here's a listen to Bethurum on the stand today.
Well, when I initially saw this fight occurring, in my mind, I figured this was just, a simple disagreement, some guys pushing and shoving, and it would dissolve as it just moved away a little bit. But as it crossed the street, there were still punches being thrown. It was not de-escalating, and a female got pushed over in the process, shoved to the ground, and that's, in my mind, that is not a simple conflict anymore. That's malice, and my friends are in danger. They're getting shoved to the ground, they're getting punched, and this is obviously not just going to simply dissolve.
And so when you go over there, what did you do?
I walked up to an individual who was a little bit shorter than me, maybe by 2 inches. And I put my hands out, confronted him, and I'm not sure what was exchanged, but it ended up hitting that individual in the face, and then not that individual, someone else reached around and stabbed me. I never saw the knife, never saw anything, and I actually originally thought I'd just been punched.
Now, the defense really honed in on that issue of no one seeing the knife, and it's difficult to make out on surveillance video. In their motion for a judgment for acquittal, they brought up the fact that no one saw the knife and did not see it in Mosley's hand, and there were no forensics linking a knife to this fight. But ultimately, that's something that the jury rejected. They agreed with the prosecution's position that this was a fist fight and you don't bring a knife to it. In this case, it's criminal.
Julie Janae at the courthouse in Nashville tonight. Thank you so much. Let's bring in our think tank, get some reaction from them. In the Bronx, New York tonight, criminal defense attorney Renee Hill. In Houston, Texas, criminal defense attorney Carmen Rowe with Frank Sinatra also there in his mugshot. And in Atlanta, Georgia, criminal defense attorney, law professor at Emory University and Georgia Innocence Project board member Molly Palmer. Great to see everyone tonight. I guess tonight's a night where we all can exhale and say the truth came out, justice was served, and we've got a killer off the streets for the rest of his life. It's a good night, Renee Hill.
Oh, Vinny.
They are all criminal defense attorneys, folks, by the way, just so.
Listen, this was a difficult case for the defense. Everything was on video, and as are most cases these days, everything is on video. And with him claiming self-defense and not putting on a case, it was even that much more of an uphill battle, because in this instance, the defense attorney had to rely solely upon his cross-examination of the people's witnesses. And the people's witnesses were very strong. And of course, the last witness, who was a victim in this case, testified, and that kind of sealed it for the prosecution and sealed the fate for the defendant.
Yeah, a lot of problems, Carmen, with the defense. Like, He was at the bar, apparently buying and selling drugs, number one. Number two, he throws the first punch. So, you know, you can't be involved in that type of conduct and then say self-defense.
Exactly right, Vinny. I think the Achilles heel for this defense was he was the first aggressor. He's the one who started this entire encounter and then escalated it from there. And as Julie said, he brought a knife to a fist fight that would have ended with maybe some people getting shoved around, maybe some people going to jail for PI, and that's it. But this didn't have to be a murder, and it's tragic. And the assault in this case was vicious.
Molly Palmer, the other difference between the three victims and the defendant is that the defendant, he is a criminal. He is a criminal. He's already serving time for an attack inside of a Walmart, also on video. I saw that on a woman, by the way. So he's a criminal. They're not. I think the jury gets it.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, that attack, the Walmart attack, was particularly vicious as well. I mean, I think what was really striking about this crime was that it was excessively violent, even for those of us who do defense in murder cases, right? The stabbing in the eye, the brutality involved in the murders. I think that that's what the foreperson was contemplating, that they had all had to sit through this, and all of these individuals are so young, you know, and he is going to probably get consecutive life sentences. So now we have this result, compounding the loss of the other two young men, and it's really tragic. The whole thing, I think, is really, really tragic, and that was the heaviness that the foreperson was articulating through the emotion when she read her verdict.
Absolutely. A difficult day, but at the end of the day, got to get to the truth of what happened, and I think the jury did that exactly today.